Here it is, early November. I am in the Northeast in the United States. The weather has turned very cold. We have had freezing temperatures several times now, frosts, even a little colder than that, close to a hard freeze. Not quite a hard freeze yet. But despite that, I'm still down here pulling root vegetables, picking some vegetables. Here I have some beets and some carrots that have obviously just come out of the ground, and behind them is a plant of kalettes. Kalettes are something a little new on the scene. They're a cross between a Brussels sprout and kale, and very cold hardy plant. Now, what am I talking about this morning? What I'm talking about, why am I pulling, why am I waiting until such cold weather to pull these? Well, to be honest, I'm waiting because life gets in the way, but the good news is that my procrastination has probably worked in my favor, in that the flavor of these, all of these, is probably improved. And the reason for that is that as this cold comes in, these plants try to protect themselves to live and survive as living organisms want to do. And what they do is start to free up some of the starches, which are complex carbohydrates, and convert them into sugars, sugar having a lower freezing point and the cell walls of that staying intact through colder temperatures than the starches in the other plant cells. So the effect of this for us, practically speaking, is that now instead of bland tasting flavorless starches, we have actual sugars broken down and freed up in the plants, and those are much more flavorful, and it really improves the flavor of the vegetables a lot. So this holds true for a lot of your root vegetables, maybe most of them, including turnips, parsnips, all sorts of root vegetables, celeriac, and it holds true for a lot of your brassica family plants. So those would be your broccolis, your cabbages, things like Brussels sprouts, kale, kalettes. So all of these cold hardy vegetables, you know, you might be doing yourself a real favor. And if you have things that you haven't gotten out of your garden, you're kind of giving up on because you thought it got too cold to harvest them, go down and check it out. As long as you have good firm roots, good firm plant leaves, if they're greens, then you're in good shape, you're good to go. And even including the greens, say on these beets and the carrots, because you can actually use carrot tops as well. You may have to pick through them a little bit, pull out some of the stuff that didn't survive. But if your greens look good, if they're firm, good color, not slimy, not rotting and breaking down, you can use those as well. So you might have done yourself a real favor, and it's something to keep in mind in the future too, is you may not want to make this a happy accident. You may actually want to plan not to harvest some of these things until later in the fall after you've gotten some frost. Parsnips in particular is one that older generations, and still plenty of people who know what they're doing, would never touch parsnips if they hadn't gotten frozen, because the flavor is just much improved after some frost and freezing. And in fact, some of those can even winter in the ground for a while as a storage method, or possibly over the whole winter. Parsnips will stay good over the whole winter. The only problem is if you really get hard frozen ground, especially if you don't have snow cover or mulch over them, you might have a hard time getting them out in the middle of winter, but they will still be there in come early spring. As long as you dig them before they start to regrow and the strength is sapped from those roots, you still got a delicious, sweet, flavorful product to eat. So that's it, you know. Winter, not necessarily a bad thing for the flavors in our gardens.